everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Devil's Advocate Trades Edition. Today joining me is Chris, and he is with a property management firm. Chris, remind me what your name of your firm?
Yes, I'm with Aspire Peak Properties.
Aspire Peak Properties. Welcome to Devil's Advocate. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Lisa. Good to be here.
So we're going to talk a little bit about you, your journey, your company, and maybe we can share some horror stories since we're both condo. Well, I used to be a condo manager and you're currently one. So you're in a couple of different spaces in the property world. So what are they?
Correct. So Aspire Peak Properties started out it started out before we were a brokerage. My wife and I have had our own investment rentals for about 7 or 8 years now. And we kind of started Aspire Peak Properties with the vision of opening the property management brokerage at some point. And That's kind of the beginnings of it. About 4 or 5 years ago, my wife Chantel opened up the rental brokerage side of Aspire Peak Properties. She's had it running ever since then. We have about 150 rental units between Medicine Hat, Lethbridge, Calgary, and Edmonton. And then about 3 months ago, I decided to open up the condo side, which is my specialty. I've been helping out with the rental side after I left my full-time job about 2 years ago. And I opened up the condo side, and I currently have 2 condos under management.
Congratulations. That's pretty quick for 3 months.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm hoping to be at 100 doors by the end of the year.
Good. So how many doors do you have right now?
Just 32 for now, a 12 unit and a 20 unit.
Okay, well that's still good. No, that's good. That's awesome. And you're located in Edmonton?
We're in Calgary. So our main base is in Calgary here. Yeah, our main base is in Calgary. Okay. And then we have a full-time property manager up in Edmonton that does our property management and leasing up in Edmonton. And then we have a full-time bookkeeper, myself, and Chantel down here in Calgary right now.
Nice. For some reason, I thought you guys, probably because we met at ACE, right? Mm-hmm. So I thought you were in Edmonton. Did you end up going to the CCI North Golf Tournament?
No, I'm not a golfer.
I'm not a golfer either. I just looked the part.
No,
I
call that ball golf. I'm not a ball golfer. I'm a disc golfer, a frisbee golfer.
Oh yeah, gotcha.
That's my sport of choice.
That's fair, but they're good. They're good events to go to for networking, especially the CCI ones. They're amazing for that. But I went to the North. It was my first time going to North. They have an amazing event, a great venue, really great sponsors. Like I had a great time. I can't even complain. And then the CCI South ones, I'm not a super fan of their venues, but they always put on a good one. They have a lot of really great sponsors as well. And CCI South does go out of their way to do a lot of great raffles and stuff like that. So I do enjoy going to the South one as well. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make the South one this year though. Meh, c'est la vie. But those are really good opportunities to network within our industry because a lot of property managers will put on their own golf tournaments and most of the time they're not inviting the competition.
No.
But CCI, that's a good one for all property. And South gives you an opportunity where I think you're only paying like $50. And I know you're not a golfer, but anybody in your offices that you want to send could go. Mm-hmm. It's best ball. I'm going to tell you right now that I always luck out because my partner's always like, I really want to golf. And I'm like, yeah, take my turn. I'm going to sit here and hang out. And they're like, sounds great. So it's like super easygoing. I'm not going to lie. Like I'm not a good golfer. I have the clubs. My clubs are logoed. I look the part, but let me tell you, I don't play the part well. So it is what it is. So now with your condo side, you're looking at getting to 100 doors by the end of the year. That's an ambitious goal. We still have quite a bit of time left, so I think you'll be able to attain it. And you want to get them. Where are your condos now? Are they in Calgary or are they kind of all over?
One in Calgary, one in Airdrie. And I want to stick with Calgary for now because I'm not planning on outsourcing the condo management like we are the rental. So like I had mentioned, currently we have a rental property manager up in Edmonton. Until we get the brokerage on the condo side up and running, I don't want to leave Calgary with my condos. So currently, I'm just looking for Calgary and surrounding areas. Maybe Airdrie, Chestermere, Cochrane, Okotoks, those kind of areas.
I'm not going to lie. So I love the fact that you're in Airdrie because I'm based out of Airdrie. And I love the fact that you're in Airdrie because we do have a property management firm out here that I am not a super fan of. So
You
whenever
and
I hear that
very many
other
people.
property, what's that?
You and many others are not fans of.
Yeah. Hmm. So whenever I hear that there's new property management firms that are taking hold of properties out here in HOAs, because I'm in an HOA, and so we're managed by Associa Sierra, and I adore them. And I also work with them as well because of what I do, right? Because I'm a construction condo consultant. So I work with some of Sierra's properties, and I think they're great. Like as a manager for an HOA, I'm not disappointed by any stretch. And then working alongside them on the other side of it, like as a consultant, they're great. So I think and it's funny because whenever I go into condos and I talk to the owners, like the board members, and we talk about, they're like, who's the best property management firm? And I'm like, it's not the firm as much as it is the manager.
Exactly. You can have an amazing management company with a terrible property manager, or vice versa. You can have the best property manager in the world with some two-bit property management company because they have to get their start somewhere.
Yeah, it's not wrong. So that's what I always tell them. I'm like, tell me who your property manager is. And if I know of them or I've heard of them, I can maybe give you some feedback, because property managers are, what's the word I'm looking for? There's so many of them, but there's not as many as there once was, because now you have to be licensed.
Well, and so with the licensing, there's nowhere near enough of us. The most recent numbers from the Real Estate Council of Alberta say that we're probably about 50 to 75 condominium managers short of where we need to be. And that's because of the licensing. And a lot of the condo managers are aging out, or they didn't want to get the license because they were getting ready to age out. And at 65, 70 years old, they didn't want to go through the schooling to get it done. So there's definitely not enough of us out there.
It's not wrong. And I've also heard in industry that there's a lot of pitting for getting managers. Like people are trying to poach, and then managers are working for one company, and then another company will be like, well, I'll pay you twice what you're getting paid, or I'll pay you like, like $50,000 more or whatever, or $20,000 more. And they're like, gone. And I'm like, oh,
and that doesn't benefit any. The only person that benefits is the employee, because it doesn't benefit any company, whether that's the company they're going to or the company they're leaving, because now everybody is set to having to pay that higher threshold. And for the companies out there who are smaller firms, that's not helping.
No, it doesn't help. But I've watched so many people do it, and I'm just like, so what firm you with this time? They're like, oh, well, yeah.
This is what we happen to see in a lot of industries, though. As soon as you attach a license to it, people get that inflated sense of importance where now that they have the license, they want 25% more of their salary purely just for having the title because they went to school for it. And condo management's no different. It's been a rising trend since the licensing has come out. Salaries are going up significantly, and it's purely because people expect more and want more, and they're getting more because of the licensing.
But what I don't like is that the output isn't more.
No.
Like the job is already hard. The job already has really messed up hours, especially when you're doing board meetings and budget meetings and AGMs. Like they add up over time, and it gets really tiresome to do that. But getting paid a good wage for it is great. But when you're a condo manager that's always kind of done the bare minimum, and then you're making the extra money doing the bare minimum, some people will be like, oh, well, they're smart. Like, and I'm like, no, you should want to put your best foot forward. You're making more money and you're working with people. Like you are a face forward company, right? So why wouldn't you want to just be better at it? There's some really good managers. I've met quite a few really good managers, and I've met some really shit managers. And I'm like, oh. And I always get frustrated when I meet a really shitty manager, because then when I get the board coming to me and saying, Lisa, I don't like my manager, they're not doing this. The management, they always never say manager, they say my management company. And I'm like, correction, your manager, not the company. Please go talk to your broker. Here is their direct contact. Let them know what's going on, and they will do one of two things. They will implement appropriate coaching for that person so that they can be better, or they will take a new property manager for you. They will swap you around. And they're like, oh, we don't want them to learn everything. I'm like, well, a lot of things are in the system, so there's not going to be too much they need to learn other than your personality.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh.
And that's an important distinction that not a lot of boards get. And that's why I mean, it's right in the name of your podcast, right? You're an advocate. You are advocating for the board to give them all the information. And not a lot of boards know a lot of that information because this is maybe their first time on a board, or maybe they've been with this management company for 10 years and they don't want to make a change.
It's not wrong. And it's interesting because I've got a few property management firms that we've kind of like, we've made jokes about kind of what I do. And they always say to me, they're like, you're so forward with your boards. Like, you don't mince words with them. And I'm like, no, I don't have time. If you don't want to pay me to like fluff your shit, then I'm not going to. I'm going to tell you brass tacks. Like, I've had people come up to me and talk to me about projects and I'm like, oh, that sounds very self-serving. We're not going to do that. And like the rest of the board just like starts laughing because they know it, I know it, but no one's brave enough to say it to the other board member. And I'm like, well, you're paying me to tell you the truth. And so let's be transparent. You don't want to, this doesn't benefit the corporation, and your job is to benefit the corporation. Right now that benefits you. And so we're not doing it. It's not something that's even on my radar to even look at. If you want to do something like that, that's a conversation you need to have with your board of directors as an owner, not as a board of director, because now you have to abstain. And they're like, well, what does that mean? It means you're not allowed to vote on it. That's what it means.
Yeah.
And then you get people who are like, they have boards and they have 7-man boards or 6-man boards, but then the president is doing everything. It's like the president is the point person and they're like, I have to make all the decisions. And I'm like, do you have that in writing? In one of your minutes? And that's the other thing I tell them. Do you have that in writing in your meeting minutes? They're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, what's the allotment that your board allows you to say yes to without their approval? And they're like 2,500. And I'm like, okay, so is that somewhere in your minutes that the board has said, we give the president the authorization to obtain any services that are required for the benefit and the integrity of the corporation at no less or no more than $2,500. Do you have that in writing? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, so you can get your hand slapped.
Yeah, 100%.
You can get sued for that. So you need to make sure that goes into your meeting minutes. And that's what a lot of boards don't understand. If you want to have a point person and give them that type of power, even managers like yourself, you need that in their minutes. We approve Chris to move forward on items for our property that do not exceed $1,500, which means that Chris can then hire a pest control guy at $1,000 to go deal with the wasps.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Well, hey, it's right in my management agreement. My spend limit, anything above that spend limit, I need to get approval for. And if it's above that spend limit, but they want me to have carte blanche, you're damn right I'm either getting that amended or I'm getting my management agreement amended.
100%. You have to protect yourself. And I think the biggest problem for me with boards is that they don't know. They don't understand what they're signing up for. They don't understand that they can be sued. They don't understand that they're going to be scrutinized. Like right now, so fun fact. So I ended up having a property manager call me. So this is something to put on your radar. I had a property management firm, a larger property management firm, call me and talk to me about a safety issue. And I was like, safety issue, what do you mean? Because I'm a designated HSA. So they said, well, Lisa, OH&S is coming after us. And I said, for what? Well, because they said somebody on one of our properties decided to do work unbeknownst to us or the board. An owner saw them doing this work and hauling out garbage bags of drywall. And apparently this building has asbestos. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, so they called OH&S. OH&S came out. Owner wasn't home. The contractor that the owner hired wasn't there anymore. And so the OH&S went and asked like one of the maintenance workers, like, who runs the building? And of course they said the property management firm. So the property management firm then went under scrutiny. And I was like, ooh, okay. So then I was like, well, the property manager has nothing to do with it. They don't make the decisions. I'm like, they execute the decisions made by a board of directors. So they're just a consultant. And I'm like, that's all they do. They make sure that nobody spends money incorrectly because they oversee all the books and they have to have all these approvals. So everything, like, I understand what you guys are telling me. So does OH&S understand this? And they were like, we're trying to get them to understand. So this went into a great big ordeal thing. So then I went and had a conversation with Hugh Willis in Edmonton. And then Hugh put me in touch with Chris Bazoff in Edmonton as well. And Chris is an OH&S and employment lawyer. So Chris and I had a great conversation the other day, and he's funny. He's going to come on podcast, and he's a funny guy. He was like, people don't understand that boards are employers and they 100% can take the fines from OHS. He said they have flown under the radar for so long. He's like, but now with everybody working from home and being remote and COVID is no longer an issue, it's going to start to become more prominent. And the first thing OHS is going to do, because they're programmed to go after the contractor, is to go after the management team. And I'm like, ooh. So he's like, the management teams need to start educating themselves and the boards that this is not a management problem. This is a board problem. If you can't control your owners on site, because it's not our job to control them, it's our job to educate and let them know when there's an infraction and make sure their money's going where it's supposed to go. It's not our job to educate them. We can give them resources, but it's not our job. So if you want us to educate, here's an extra cost. But if you don't want to, if you want to do this yourself, then your corporation needs to understand, because it's almost kind of like you need to tell your owners to get in their lane. If they want to start doing things where there's party walls, plumbing, anything that is conjoined that would be common property, they need to stop and notify the board. Mm-hmm. And the board then has to make a decision on whether or not they're going to move forward with their corporation contractor and split the difference, or how that's going to work. Because I'm like, if you're just putting lipstick on a pig, no one's going to care. You're painting some walls, putting some new baseboards in, no one gives a shit. But the minute you're like, I want to take this wall out and I want to like put a new window somewhere. And I'm like, I was so mad when they started putting in bylaws that owners were responsible for doors and windows. I was so mad at that, because I was like, no, that should have stayed a corporation cost. Anything building envelope should have stayed a corporation cost, because then there's control of who's putting what in where and how it's being constructed, especially when you're dealing with those types of like large projects. So whenever I hear the corporation tell me that, oh, well, no, my neighbor got his done a year ago, I'm like, by who? Who do you use? So yeah, so I don't know what your thoughts are on all those things, but love to hear them.
I mean, I don't mind from a financial aspect that the owners are responsible for their own doors and windows. But, as a matter of control, the board does still have, and the management company still has some control, because it's obviously a renovation that affects the exterior. So the board still has the ability to approve or decline a certain renovation request. But at what point do you have to say, okay, well, we can only limit it so much? Because if it's owner responsibility, then how do we tell them it's their responsibility, but then also say, but you have to do exactly what we say? So having a good set of guidelines in place is always the best way to do it. I mean, just like your bylaws, having a good set of policies and procedures in place is the best way to go. If you've got a renovation policy or even a window and door policy, and say, these are the 3 contractors we use and we have approved for your windows and doors. You use one of those 3 contractors. They know our color scheme. They know our window style, and we are not approving anything but those 3. Mm-hmm. That's kind of been my kind of aspect on it from day one. As soon as they started making that more common in the bylaws to try and save some money, not realizing that they're losing this control, you can gain back most of that control by giving, like I say, a few options and making the owners feel like they have that control back, which they do. They have the ability to pick from one of your 3 preferred contractors, but at the end of the day, the board still has the ability to say, yes, we're approving that specific renovation request, or no, we're not.
Yeah, and I think that's why a lot of people don't tell the board about their renovation stuff, but then can run into these problems. So what's going to end up happening is that the boards are either going to start getting fined, which means the owners are all going to get fined, right? Because the owners are all technically employers at that point, because they're putting together a volunteer board to make these decisions on their behalf. So I don't know all the legislation that would go behind it, but I can't imagine the board not being able to say, well, then everybody takes a piece of this fine, right? I'm not sure how that would work, because if the board doesn't even know about it and they're getting fined, I mean, yeah. How do you I would charge back the owner personally on that fine, but those fines can range anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000.
And if, at the end of the day, ultimately, if the board were held responsible and this wasn't something they were either able to legally or able to realistically charge back to the owners, the board does have their directors and officers coverage through their insurance. So if they didn't know about it, they'd be covered legally from a liability standpoint. It's just like you say, when the board isn't aware of it, how can they control it? So it's a fine line of how much can you control, but you don't know what you don't know.
Well, that's it. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that nobody is going to take ignorance as bliss as a plea. So they have to try and do, like, there has to be some sort of onus on what you're understanding, what you're signing up for when you take on the responsibility of becoming a board member, whether you're a director at large or an executive role. You have to understand what that means to not only your corporation, yourself, but also the outward facing of it, right? So like how people can, if they come after the corporation, it's the board that's the face. So they're everybody in there needs to have to make sure they have the best interest of the property. Now, control is such a dirty word, Chris, and everybody hates it when people are like, I want control. It's not necessarily that people want control of what other people are doing in their houses. They want to be able to stop problems. So it's having the control of the foresight that could potentially be a problem. And I like what you said when you were like, yeah, you know what? Let's give them 3 contractors. Let's be proactive about this. But what happens to the one guy that says, I'm not using any of those guys. I can get my buddy down the road who installs windows to install. I can just buy these windows from Plygem and he can just install them. And then we're like, okay. And the board isn't aware that it's not another installer. The windows are now getting done. There's now, a hole in the side of the building because he's doing the windows, but the board's like, well, we didn't approve that contractor. So how does that work, right? Like, how do you stop work when they've got an open, basically like an excavation inside of their building, right? Now what?
It's tough. I mean, you have to, in most cases, you're having to review and redo bylaws sometimes to make sure you actually have the legal standing to stop work. So I've seen where when boards are redoing their bylaws, which I recommend at least getting them reviewed every few years to make sure you're not only on par with the current legislation changes, but any current trends that are coming up as far as short-term rentals, or in this case, renovations, where you can have in your bylaws that the renovations need to be approved by the board. And if they're not approved by the board, you do not have permission to move forward. That's not enough, though, is if you move forward and you don't have approval, what ramifications does the board have to stop you? And if it's not in your bylaws, then the board doesn't really, if it's a gray area, then you have to go through the legal system and actually stop them that way. But if it's in your bylaws, black and white, you have to get your renovations approved. If your renovation is approved, you're good to move forward. But if your renovation is not approved and you move forward with it, the board has the ability to not only stop you, but has the ability to return it to its original or to make it comply with the renovation policies and charge that back to the owners. And that's what I'm starting to see more often, so that the board actually has a semblance of control. But that's not easy, as I'm sure you're aware. Changing your bylaws is not a short process.
No, even doing amendments. Actually, interesting. I sit on COF as their condo chats coordinator, host and moderator, and I really love doing that. And I kind of hit people from all over Alberta, and every once in a while, I'll bug people outside of Alberta to come listen to all these different professionals that are talking about how to do things and what's going on. And the last people that I had was called Condo Voter, and the one thing I liked about them is that property managers can install this condo voter for their boards. And when you're doing decisions, even just day to day, they have to vote on it. And then you have the quorum of the board. Mm-hmm. There's no more like waiting for these threads of emails to come through with like a drawn out response. They can tailor it to whatever you want. Yes, no, abstain, require more information. They can have it however it makes sense to the board. And then that way, when you're sending out, hey, these are our contractors, who do you want to move forward with? You're not waiting 5 days. You just get right away the responses. And if someone needs more information, then you provide them more information. But at least you have quorum. So if 3 out of the 5 say, yeah, go, you have it. Mm-hmm. Which kind of makes it a little bit more. I like the condo voter aspect just simply because it's more than just doing it at an AGM. You can do it in person and you can do it like over the phone. So they have a mobile app that they can, when you're at an AGM in person, that people can vote as well, which is a great thing, especially when you're doing like the bylaws. So if you get a really good turnout, because there's some boards where you get an awesome turnout for an AGM, and then you just have this app that basically comes up and says, do you vote yes to the new bylaws? And you can get your 75%. Mm-hmm. Right? And you have it on your side going, yes, these people all voted yes to it. We're done. We're passed, which is actually kind of nice. So it's always
If
something
you
to look
can,
at. I really
if you can get that turnout though, that's the hardest part is, especially if you have a larger building, getting that big of a turnout is going to be the tough part, in my experience.
just tell them there's free beer, but don't actually bring it. Or bring root beer. Bring root beer.
There you go.
Ginger beer,
Put,
sarsaparilla,
put, put in the fine print, exactly.
right? Free beer, as in free root beer. Right? And then they come out and they're like, I thought there was free beer, root beer. But yeah, no, I understand that the challenges that happen as a property manager. So tell me, I'm curious to know why, because I know, like you were saying, so your other half does the rental side of it, but you like condo. So what do you like more about condo than per se the rental side?
I personally, I've always been condos. We have our rentals that we
Right?
own, and sure, rentals are fine. I mean, a lot of people love rentals, but for me,
Mhm.
the complexity of condos is what I like. It's nothing specifically that I don't like about the rental side. It's just day in, day out, it's the same kind of thing. You know, your applications, your move-ins, your move-outs, and that's almost it. On the condo
Mhm.
side, I've got multi-million dollar budgets, building envelope projects, renovation requests, board meetings, AGMs. There's just so much more complexity to it. It's a new story every day, never a dull moment. I don't think I've had a single day in the condo management world where I don't have a new story that I haven't at least seen, that I haven't seen before.
Yep, that's fair. There is a lot more moving around and shifting yourself. It's not just a monotonous day to day stuff. That is for sure.
Because at the end of the day, it's a larger scale. It's one thing to convince a owner who has a suited house or maybe a suited set of townhomes where it's 6 units. It's one thing to
Mhm.
convince them for you to manage their 6 units. It's an entirely different story to, get the trust and the approval of a board of directors to manage their 235 unit 5-story building that's worth tens of millions of dollars. So again, it's not just the complexity, but it's the scale as well. It just seems
Mhm.
it's a little more gratifying at the end of the day when you're working on that budget that is, multiple millions of dollars, or you finish that envelope project that took 2 years to complete and you can see the
Mhm.
progress.
Yep. Not wrong. Not wrong. So I understand why you love condo. It's just it's bigger scale and there's more stuff to think about. Do you have any I guess my question to you really would be, you know, I know your goal is, and I think that that's completely attainable, your goal that you have to hit 100 doors. But in that, with that being said, like, what do you think you do different that you bring to a condominium versus the other condos? Because let's be realistic, there's a lot of condos that have been, our condo property management that have been popping up. There's companies I've never even heard of that are coming out all over the place. And I'm like, who? And they're like, oh, yeah, have you heard of these? And I'm like, what? I'm like, when did they start? And who's with them? So what do you think you offer differently than a condo management firm that is similar to you? Not the ones like the ones that are larger than you or the ones that may be smaller than you, but the ones that are kind of more on par with you, like the startups. What is your, because you got to be a broker,
That's a
right? You're a
really good,
broker.
yeah, it's a really good question. And I don't think it's a matter of what I do differently. It's just a matter of what I do better that's everybody's already doing. I'm not looking, some of these companies, they're looking to change the way these newer startups, they're looking to change the way that condominium management or rental management is done by hiring a couple of condo managers and having a pooled condominium management system, or having different steps of this person deals with this level and then this person deals with a different level, but they could be the same thing just at different stages. um, I'm doing the normal kind of condominium management where you've got your condo manager and then you have your admin pool that helps them. But what I'm looking to do better is, probably the biggest complaint that I'm sure you hear from everybody is communication and organization. And I mean, that's what if you ever kind of go back and look at my history of, reviews from my current company, reviews from my previous companies, communication is where I thrive. And that's where Aspire Peak Properties thrives, of making sure we're getting back to our owners, tenants, vendors, board of directors within that 24 business hours, making sure that we are on our portal, making sure we're communicating with all of the owners and residents of the buildings to let them know what's going on. If they have concerns, making sure we're dealing with them in a timely manner. And that's not something that should be out of the norm. But in the last couple of years, that's the trend is more money or the same money for less service because everything is getting more expensive. So they're having to
Yeah.
find ways to cut costs, whether that's outsourcing your accounting to a different country or whether that's having two or three admins handling what five or six admins should be doing, and then the support staff is going away. Or even if that is getting rid of your receptionist that you've had for 10 years and making the phone an auto system where it's an auto attendant. You have to dial into just, you have to know the person you want to talk to. You can't just speak to a person on the phone and say, hey, I'd like to speak with my property manager. Great. Do you know who your property manager is? No, I don't, but my address is such and such. That person can point you in the right direction. But if you're
Yeah.
getting an auto attendant where it's press one for Chris, great. What properties does Chris manage?
Right.
So, I mean, that's the biggest complaint that we always get, especially from tenants and owners in buildings is I'm not hearing from my property manager. I've reached out to my property manager 5 times about a complaint and I haven't heard back from them. So communication is what I'm building my business on, and not just the communication between myself and my clients, but the communication I hope to get within the industry. Word of mouth is everything in this industry, and not just the verbal word of mouth as far as people talking about who's managing it, but then the electronic, the reviews on Google, the the website traffic, and just making sure that we are heard and we're out there and we're getting recognized. So again, it's not really what I can do differently. I'm just doing the same thing that everybody else should be doing, just a little bit better, just to get the reputation out there.
I think that's great. And you're absolutely correct. Communication is one of the bigger aspects of everything, which is why I have my business, because my business is basically communication, right? So I keep everybody honest and transparent. And by doing that, I do it based off of communication, right? So, but you're not wrong. And it's funny because I'm someone who goes off of, I pair, and I think it's because I worked in the industry. So, when someone calls me and they say, this is funny, they'll tell me their building name and I'm like, what's your address? And I'm like, oh, your property manager is Kelly. And and they're like, oh, how do you know that? And I'm like, because I know which properties are hers or his or whatever, right? And I've done that a lot. And then sometimes it'll be the reverse. I'll always hear the name of the building versus knowing the address off by heart. I just know where to go. And so then I'll have like somebody, they'll be like, I live at 1205, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what's the name of your building? And they'll be like, oh, like Champagne or whatever. And I'm like, oh, I know where you are.
See, at least
And
that
like,
one's at least that one's useful. I'm one of those property managers who, once I learn their condo corporation number and you use it for everything, I still know the condo corporation numbers of buildings I haven't managed for 5 years. Just because every day that's what you use to recognize it with. So, some of my largest, most prolific buildings, I could still rattle off the CCNs for today that I haven't even thought about in 5 years, just because you do it every day.
Yeah. And I don't pay attention overly to the CCNs unless I have to, but normally it's the address, complex name, and then who the board members are, who my point of contacts are, and then their management team. And that's it. That's all I need to know. I don't deal a lot with the management teams, simply because I'm kind of more like their restitution of why they don't need to be dealing with this and having 500 emails. I deal with it. And then I just give them a little, every time I send out a report, they get a copy of the report. And then they just, so that if they want to look at it, they can. If they don't, they don't. Either way, they're like, basically, sometimes what happens, I'll send out a report and they'll be like, I just get an email right away. Is there any problems? And I'm like, no. Or sometimes I'll be like, read the report. I'm feeling mean today. But most of the time I'm like, no. I'm like, no, there's no problem. Or yes, there is, or whatever the case may be. Or yes, we're in the midst of a change order and this is what's going on. But there's nothing you need. There's no action required. That's really what they're looking for. Most property managers are looking at or condo managers are looking at is there an action from me required? And that's usually what I'll get out. No, there's no action required. It's an FYI. If you require action, I'll let you know. And I think that's kind of was always kind of been my drive, is to make a property manager's life easier. But where I'm finding that I have the most problem, and maybe you can help me with this one, because I don't know. I find that property managers are very, what's the word I'm looking for? I wouldn't say
Don't worry.
protective. They're
Don't worry about being
possessive.
nice. There you go.
Be nice. They're very possessive of their properties. So someone like me comes on and they're like, oh, you have to go through me. And I'm like, no, I don't go through you. I go through the board because I need directions immediately. We're dealing with a project that has time sensitivity and I need answers right away. I would love to go through you if we had all kinds of time. But when I'm dealing with building envelope, I have so many months out of the year that I can go through this with you. So I'm going to need you to just thank you for the introduction. I'm going to take it from here. There's more now that are like, oh my God, yes, please. But in the beginning, they were like, no, you have to go through me. And then they were like, I don't want to work with Lisa because she doesn't go through me. And I'm like, you guys have a 3-day turnaround for response. If I need to know what the color of this is, I need to know what the color of, what color they're choosing, not wait 3 days because you have a large portfolio.
And I wish I could, weigh in a little more to why other people don't like that, but I can't because I'm on the side of hire the professionals that are the professionals in their industry. I'm not a construction specialist by any means. I know enough to get by. I know enough to hire the engineer, hire the building envelope specialist, hire my consultants. If I need a large electrical project done, I'll help you compare quotes if they need, but I'm still hiring electricians and the electrical engineers if they're needed. So, I wish there was more people out there like you that were willing to, take on that kind of communication aspect of it, because at the end of the day, you can't be a professional in everything. Jack of all trades, master of none is kind of what the property manager has to be, but that's exactly it, master of none. I'm not going to put my reputation on the line by trying to do a building envelope project without the proper consultants. If something goes wrong, I don't have the kind of liability insurance to cover if I gave opinion on something that I am not an expert in. That's why there's people out there like you, like the engineers, like the construction consultants who that's your job. That's what you are supposed to be doing. And that's your only job. You're not doing the arrears every day. You're not doing the budget. You're not doing the board meetings, but a property manager has to be doing those. So if I can't take the time out of my day to properly communicate to the board, what color does this need to be? Or I have a change order that, we need to get done right away because we found more rot and we need to get that dealt with before the siding guys come along in 3 days and start working on the siding. But I can't move forward with repairing the rot until that change order is signed. Like you said, turnaround, it shouldn't be 3 days, but let's be honest, sometimes it is. Turnaround should be 24 business hours, but it's not in this industry right now. And so if they have somebody like you who can communicate what is needed and get it done right away, why wouldn't you bring that person on? It just makes it more efficient.
I agree. Now, I'm telling you what I'm doing, just so you know. You made the jack of all trades comment, but the jack of all trades, master of none is actually a positive comment because you don't want to have
than a master of one.
What's that?
But jack of all trades, master of none, but better still than a master of one is the full. Yeah, of course. I know all of those.
I know this has a different term to it, but I'm like, when people say they're a jack of all trades, but then at the same time, just to sidebar, because I'm a bit of a squirrel, is that whenever someone is a jack of all trades, I always give them a hard time. And I'm like, are you a jack of all trades because you want it to be, or did your ADHD kick in? And they're like, whatever.
See, and I won't go on too much of a tangent on this because I know we have limited time, but there are a lot of those sayings out there where they have the opposite connotation of what they're meant to because we shorten them. So that's only one of 3 that are very commonly misunderstood. Better late than never. People take that as a good thing, but that's not the full saying.
It's like birds of a feather.
Yeah.
Have you heard that one? Birds of a feather flock together? It's actually not a good one. It's like I utilize it as a positive. Like when someone that's like me, I'm like, birds of a feather flock together, but it's actually not a good one. And I'm like, oh, I remember reading the whole thing and I'm like, oh. I was like, whatever.
Last one on the tangent, then I'll let you move on. Blood is thicker than water.
That's my favorite.
People misunderstand that all the time, right? They think, well, that means your family should be coming first. No, it's the blood of the coven is thicker than the water of the womb. Exactly. And people don't understand that.
Yeah, I knew it. I was going to use that one too. Good
Yeah,
one.
all the
It's a
time.
good one because everyone always says blood is thicker than water, and I'm like, ooh, do you know the full quote?
If only you knew.
If only you knew.
But I
You mean
digress.
nothing to me. Well, it's true. I think it's a good. I think it's a good one because it basically says the family you choose is the family that you should keep, right?
Hmm.
So, because everyone, I agree with you on that one. People go off on their little tangents. But yeah, I'm not sure what else you want to move on to. I mean, like, what else do you want to talk about? I mean, we can talk. I mean, I could talk about condo all day long. I mean, there's lots of little jokes and whatnot that come about. I love working with boards. I prefer working with boards. I tried working with contractors to try and change some of their perspective of how they maybe shouldn't hide all their markup, and they didn't really like that. I was
Let's
like,
see what.
well, it was like, listen, guys, like I want you to make money on this project, just maybe not your annual, take home on one. Just I don't know. Maybe let's just span that out a little bit because there are some contractors, and I won't lie to you, it stresses me out a lot, and that's one of the reasons why I became an advocate. Was I had contractors that if you paid attention and knew how to audit bills, because you have to know how to audit them, where to look, and they were charging upwards of 60% markup.
Jeez.
60%, 60. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding? Like, and I would go back to them, and I'm nice enough not to bring it to the board's attention, the property manager's attention right away. I go to them and I'm like, hey, I'm more than just a pretty face. And this is what you're going to do for this company. And this is what you're going to do. And I'm going to do you a favor because I think you made a mathematical error. And that's the story I'm going to tell the property manager and the board when they ask. But you're going to fix this, right? And if they want to fight with me, I'm like, cool. And then the email goes out, right? And now it's all in writing. Please be advised that after our conversation today, I realize that you willfully put all of these extra items in when they're not required. You've now shown me that you're charging 60% of markup, which industry standard is approximately 20%. For restoration, it is 5 points based off of Exactament. Please be advised that I'm going to have to ask you to change this immediately, and all of these additional items have to come in the form of a change order. And then has to be approved by the board of directors. And then it gets carbon copied to the property manager and to the board of directors. And then my title will be urgent, change orders required. And right away, the property manager is going to be like, change orders. And then I'm going to get a phone call. And then that's where it's going to be, oh yeah, I'm just forcing him to break out all of his crappy costs. Now, to me, like I said, I want every company to make money. Every once in a while I give GCs a hard time because I'm like, what do you guys really do other than herd cats? Like, you basically are like, oh, you basically hire all these different companies to come in and do the work. Well, you have to notify us of who the companies are, give us their insurances and their WCBs. And then I'm like, and then you have to pay attention to them and you have to pay them. And this is where the majority of liens happen on properties, is because the GC didn't pay their sub. And the sub liens the property. But the board has paid the contractor that they have the contract with. So that's where I will come in and I'll be like, oh, we're going to fix this. And I will go, and so what I've done is I've told the board, we're now going to lien the contractor, the GC. We're going to lien him personally and his company. So now anytime he needs to do anything or sneeze, he's going to have to pay you back. And then I'm like, or I'll go find the other guy, say, take this lien off. I'll show you the other lien you need to put on. And then you're guaranteed your money. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, oh, and that's where like CCDCs come in, because then you want them they got to get a stat deck to show that they paid them. And how many people fake that shit? I've had people give me a stat deck and they haven't paid their person. And then I have to call and be like, did he pay you? And they're like, no, we haven't received payment. And then I have to hand them back a statutory declaration. And I'm like, it's against the law, right?
See, and right there, even just you, so like I mentioned, I've been out of the game for about 2 years. Even just you bringing up the CCDC contracts and talking about the stat decks, it brings back this, like, I just had my first board meeting with my first condo that I brought on last night, and just the difference of going from rentals to condos is just so much. Mm-hmm. It's just such a difference in in level of service, not even just level of service, but what you're talking about. You don't have board meetings with your owners of a single unit, and you don't talk
No,
about CCDC contracts when you're doing a roof repair on a one unit house.
no. No, surely not. That's not a big thing. I'm probably one of those crazy people that might use a CCDC for a roofer. And then I'd be like, please find my safety package attached. Now, I have a different type of pitch. I think um, my person was up there not long ago, and I think he said it was a 712. It was pretty steep. And I was like, on my roof. And I was like, well, it doesn't look like that. But I haven't climbed up the 30-foot ladder to take a look. So I'm like, and he just said he was like, definitely going to need people to tie off. And I never understood. I was bugging my one buddy. He lives a couple doors down. He's a flat roofer, but I was bugging him about why roofers never tie off. And he's like, oh yeah, that's a thing. I'm aware. So, but I'm going to have to get somebody to go back up there, and they got to like caulk all these different vents on I got a whole bunch of vents on one side of my roof, and I'm like, oh God. But then I also do restoration, which is another aspect. I'm going to get you all excited here now that you're back in condo. There's restoration when there's a loss. You got to bring in the restorators. You got to do drying. You got to talk to insurance. And I do that as well, right? So I'm a designated technician, water technician, and I went and got that 5 years ago is when I actually went and got my certification for it. And it was probably one of the best certifications I got. Now, I talked about possibly looking at getting to be a master water tech, but I don't know if I'm going to do that. I think I might pivot and try and get the different losses like fire, smoke. But I do want to do the applied drying. And I should do the microbial or whatever, like the ARMT, I think it is, or ARMT. So it's like I can't remember. It's like microbial remediation or whatever it is. Anyway, so it's all about mold.
Don't look at me to help you with those acronyms. Like I said, I hire the professionals that know what those are.
I can't think of it off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. AMRT. I think that's what it is. Applied microbial restoration technician is what it is.
There you go.
So, but it's and IICRC is where we get our designations. They're all recognized in all over Canada. Well, most of Canada, Alberta especially, but they are from the United States, which actually reminds me I have to redo my cert. So I just reminded myself by talking about this. But they're the ones who put out all of these different programs, and then you're designated. And you've taken the course, like they're like 4 or 5 day in courses, but they're very complex. Like it's a lot of information coming at you, and you do a lot of testing, and you have to understand it. And it's worth it. And I think that more property managers should take some form of it, like just to have some knowledge. I mean, I know you guys have people out there that do all that stuff, so I'm not saying it's a necessity by any stretch, but it would be really good to have that, especially when you're dealing with insurance claims. And then you can walk in and be like, oh, I know what this problem is. And I'm not saying you need to get designated necessarily, but I think a designation in either fire, smoke, or water would be really good. Because one thing I will tell you about water is that it goes wherever it wants. And I've been in buildings where it jumps. Like you've got a leak in one unit, and then it jumps 2 doors down in the front. So it's leaked out to the front foyer. And then all of a sudden it's like jumped to another unit in their front foyer, but it's not going directly across. And I'm like, there's there's no trail to show me where this water came. Like it just showed up down there. Like, how did that happen? And it's like a phenomenon. I'm like, what happened? And I saw that. I remember we were pulling up all the gyprock in one of the buildings because it had gotten under the concrete on the different levels of the walkways, like just the hallways. So we had to pull the gyprock up, and I was like sitting there, and I'm like, how did it get there and there and there, but not here? And they're like, it's water. It goes where it wants. And I'm like, that's intense. That's scary. So the rule of thumb as for a restorator is 4 feet, 360. Whenever there's a water leak and you've determined the source of the leak, it is 4 feet all the way around. You have to look. Yeah. So now you know. So when someone's like, oh, I checked, be like, did you check over there? So there you go. But yeah. But anyways, yeah. Is there anything else you want to chat with me about? Tell people how they can get a hold of you. Yeah.
So we're all over the place in all the socials. We're on Facebook and Instagram under Aspire Peak Properties. We've got our website, aspirepeakproperties.com. It's got all of our contact information on there, everything from the rentals to the condo side. And then our general email is on there as well. It's just info@aspirepeakproperties.com.
Perfect. Well, that's awesome. Well, thanks, Chris. Is there anything else you want to tell us?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head.
I'm like, I've got him like all excited about doing all these possible projects. I'm like, some of them you don't want to do.
No, you always tell your big vendors, your restoration, your plumbers, your HVAC for the big projects, they ask you how you're doing. I'd be better if I wasn't talking to them, but here we are, right? It's good to have them when you need them, but it's better to not need them. So
agree.
That's the thing. If we're having another one of these phone calls in a year, that's great, but I'm okay if that's the next time that you and I have to talk professionally. Because if I'm talking to you, that means I'm doing a large project that I've got to spend, tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars on. So good to have you in the back pocket, but if we don't need those projects.
Someone like me, it's usually hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Exactly.
Usually. And I'm usually trying to keep it within a number that makes everybody happy. Now, with that being said, not necessarily. There could be a time when you talk to me about other aspects, or if you ever want to know like some good plumbers in Calgary. I'm sure you know lots because you were a condo manager prior. But there's a lot of new people in the game, and same with, like I said, CCI. Like jump in with them, or even COF. Jump in with them. They're really great for networking. Especially for properties, and also just helping educate properties as well, because that's something that I do a lot of as well. Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Chris, for being on Devil's Advocate. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. No worries. Okay, everybody. Well, we will catch you on the flip side. So as always, don't do anything crazy.